Welcome back to Carla Astrology. Thank you for joining me. Um, let's get into the INFJ and our palms. So, the INFJ is the advocate. Um, they are associated in the tarot with the Jungian code as the Queen of Cups. So, there's a lot of water in that personality. The advocate, you think those are the people that are always fighting for other people. They're an introvert, they are intuitive, they're feeling, and they're judging. Their strengths are that they're creative, they are insightful, principled, passionate, and altruistic. Their weaknesses could be that they are sensitive to criticism, they are reluctant to open up, they're very perfectionistic, and they could be avoiding of, say, ordinary things. And they're prone to being burnout. So, if we associate that in our palms, you're going to see, in my opinion, somebody with a blended hand again. And that blended hand is going to be, I would say, water and air. And air is the square palm with the long fingers, and water is the rectangular palm with the longer fingers. With that being said, I believe that the mounts associated with the INFJ that are going to be bigger are going to be Saturn. And Saturn is underneath your middle finger. And Saturn is where you find, the humanitarians, and also like people that are a little bit introverted. They approach life in a very sober manner. I also believe that the moon is going to be highly pronounced. We are talking about water and intuitive. And then the other one I believe would be Mercury, and not so much for the communicative, but that's where you also find your healers. So I do believe that, again, a well-balanced hand is going to have all of the mounts nice and, full. Not necessarily over full, but I think that they will be, standard size. But I do believe that maybe they might have a bigger moon, or they might have a bigger Saturn. I think that Venus will be well-sized, and obviously you can still be introverted and be successful. So Jupiter is still going to have a decent size. So when I say, again, the bigger mounts are the ones I think that will be a little bit more pronounced. I think that the thumb is going to be the conic thumb. And I will show you a picture of that. So the conic thumb will look like this, or it could also be wasted like this, but it's still going to have that round fingertip, because those are your doers, those are your thinkers, but they're very artistic and sensitive. And then if it's wasted, those are your people that are very polite and kind, tactful, and discreet. So we are still, I think, talking about an INFJ. Also, though, the fingertips are going to be conic and possibly pointed, because on a water hand, you are going to see more pointed fingers. And that is a high indication of somebody that has developed their clairs. They're very psychic. They're in tune to, their feelers are out in the world. And so I think you'll see a blended hand of pointed fingertips and conic fingertips. I think that their hands are going to be fairly pink. Sometimes they could be a little yellow or white. I think that the skin texture is going to be refined, kind of soft. Doesn't mean that your INFJ couldn't be a hard worker and you could see that, but I would look more on the back of the hand for that. And I think those are the people that you're going to, it'll be softer, you know? Because the skin texture is very indicative of the personality also. So lines. The lines, I think, are going to be very similar. All the queens, I think, are going to be very similar. So we have the heart line right here. And I do believe that the heart line is going to point more towards the middle. But I do also think that you're going to see sometimes that pink line is maybe like the line is pointing towards Jupiter, because that's also when the heart line points towards Jupiter. Those are the people that are very romantic and loyal. So I believe that INFJs could be that too. But for the most part, I think it's going to be pointed to the center and maybe curved a little bit. Too much might show that they're very reactive instead of proactive. So I believe that it will be a little bit more just fairly curved. And there are going to be times you might see somebody that might have a line that like curves like downward a little bit. And if it curves downward, then those are the people that might struggle with their emotions. And I can definitely say that somebody with a lot of water in their chart, they might have times where they struggle. And so we talked about in the last video where your major lines don't change, but there are little sister lines that like come off of it, you know, little fine lines that show either where you might be, you went through a period in your life where you struggled with certain things, and you'll see like these little lines that come off of it that are still an extension of your basic major line. And that also goes for the headline. So like a headline, I think in an INFJ is going to be not like extremely long, but at least more than halfway across the palm. And you might see it curve downwards, because that does show a lot of creativity, but it can also be somebody that gets stuck in that mindset. So, and because they struggle, you know, they might get lost in that dream world, and it points to the moon. So the moon is where we do find the, you know, that fantasy, things that are hidden. So, well, another thing too, I think that you will see more people that have the headline and the lifeline connected here. Now, I did show you in the last video that I do believe that this is possible too, because these little lines in here, they still connect these, and that shows that introversion wasn't something they were born with, but things that happened in their childhood kind of tend to make them more introverted. So, and if you're an INFJ, you know that you've taken the test probably more than once. So, or you take it at certain periods in your life, and you either are still an INFJ or you've changed a little bit. But, you know, we don't take these tests. I mean, I personally didn't take that test until I was in my 30s, you know, and then I've taken it periodically and still come up an INFJ. But, you know, when you see this in your hand where there's a space, but you've got these little lines connecting them, that shows that there are things in your childhood that kind of made you introverted. And when you go down the path of shadow work, sometimes you find those things out, and you're like, oh, okay, well, now I can see why, I didn't speak up as much, or why it was harder to speak up as much or put yourself out there. Let's see, am I missing anything with lines? I think the lifeline that's more about vitality of life. So, I think that's going to vary. I do think that you will see a lot of these lines of stigmata, the healer lines, because I believe that INFJs are also healers. You know, they're people that are fighting for your fellow man, to understand, to be understanding of other humans, I mean, just I think that is so the healer lines when somebody is trying to understand another person that might not be easy to understand, it's kind of a healing effect. So, I think that's all I want to cover. So at the end of, if you made it this far, I want to tell you that I am an INFJ. So, and what I was talking about in previous videos and waited till this one to talk to you about it is because, one, all of my videos are on palmistry are for entertainment purposes only, because palmistry it's not an exact science. It is a part of physiognomy. Not sure if I said that correctly, but physiognomy is the pseudoscience that associates traits with a person's appearance. So it's based upon many studies and correlations with, the same traits, having this person acts this way, not to explain the science itself, but so that's why it can be, not always 100%. So, and I would say probably more than, not, there are going to be many variations. So, and with myself being an INFJ, like if I go back and I say, okay, yes, one, I am very introverted. I'm working on that. So it's not like it was, but in my core, I'm very introverted. So I struggle to put myself out there. I'm intuitive. I'm very feeling. So, it's like, even though I might not come off that way sometimes, I'm struggling internally. So it's at my core that I'm very feeling and judging. I'm more judging of how I am to the outside world. So, and that shows up in my birth chart. So, which is very interesting, because if you look at my birth chart, my big three, according to True Sidereal or Real Sky, my big three is I'm a Virgo, I'm a Leo, so my ascendant is Leo, and my moon is in Aries. So that's like earth and big fire, right? So I thought, where's all this water coming from? Why do I keep coming up INFJ? And so then you take a bigger look into your chart. And so first, also, I want to say, like, the difference between, to me, True Sidereal and Western is the older I get, I'm able to I like be more honest with myself, and I can see what I probably didn't see before. Like Western, I think, just to me, is more of a like when you round something up, or when you're vague about something. You get the basic idea, but you don't get in deep. So, and I think with True Sidereal, you get more to your core of the things that you might struggle with naturally. And I feel like Real Sky or True Sidereal is actually more accurate. And again, this is just my opinion. So as an INFJ, again, my birth chart, my big three, doesn't line up with that. But in my fourth house, I have Scorpio and Ophiuchus. So, and the fourth house is, that's where you find your home and your family and your foundations. So, think about that. Scorpio is very deep. It's a well, it's a well of emotions. And that's how I deal with my home and my family and my foundation. So that's how I am with my kids, my other half, my family in general. So there's some water there. Now, at the very end of the 4th house, before I go into the 5th house, there's a little bit of Sagittarius. So there is some fire in there too. But that's also Sagittarius is more the developed, the like I kind of look at Aries, Leo, and Sagittarius is kind of like a level up type thing. So Sagittarius is kind of like maybe taken those fire qualities and controlled them a little bit better. Not that they're not there anymore, but anyway, so I look at them as like level up. So the Sag is in there, but I think that that's more of like the older I get, I know that I'm still learning, but I look at it like I am becoming more, learning more about my family and my friends. So it's like I'm approaching it in a more sensitive manner. So then my 7th house starts in Pisces, or no, actually ends in Pisces. And so my 8th house is full of Pisces. And the 8th house is where we find transformation. And then 7th house is partnerships and marriage. So coming out of Aquarius into Pisces, and then just a hair of Aries at the end of it. So, but Pisces is like what's monopolizing those, that house, the 8th house. So that's where my transformation is. And that's, so those are the things that I'm always working on. And it's water-based. And my Chiron is in Pisces. So to me, there's so much, speaking of INFJ. And then to top it off, my 11th house is in Cancer. And the 11th house is how I support others, how I fight for my causes and the peers. So it's all about how I am with other people. So INFJ to me speaks volumes in my birth chart. And then if you look at my hands, I do have a well-developed moon. My Venus is average. My Saturn, right here, is very well developed. My Mercury is well developed. I have a heart line that does kind of point between here and my oh, I'm sorry, that's Sun. My Sun is pretty well developed too, by the way. My Saturn and my Jupiter. So, and these are your people that are, if it's pointing between there, that's a person that is pretty well balanced in their approach to relationships, matters of the heart. So, and these are not connected, but they are. I do have the little lines in there. So, and my headline does kind of go down a little bit, not major, but it does point down. So yes, I have trouble with my emotions. So, but I mean, I also have a lot of fire. So, I mean, that's different. My fingers are short. So obviously that doesn't fit into the air and the water. I have a fire hand. It is blended with air because my palms are rectangular and water, but my fingers are short. So that's a very practical person when they are, when your fingers are shorter. So I also have a stellarium in Virgo. So that was kind of what I was talking about with having a blended hand. And it may not always line up with, when you're taking a personality test, but that's because there are so many things that go into our personalities if you're archetyping according to your birth chart, numerology, palmistry. So when I am doing these videos, they are, when it's on palmistry and archetyping with Myers-Briggs, these are just things that I believe that you will find in an INFJ's hand. So, again, like I said, I have a lot of fire in my hand too. But I still have the things that say, oh yeah, okay, that's an INFJ. And then I could the more I work on myself, I could be something different at another time. But I can honestly say that before coming to this community, what I thought was shadow work, I don't think that was shadow work. It wasn't until I really started diving into things that happened as a child, good or bad, it does not matter. It's just things that like shaped you, and you know, it doesn't even have to be your parents. It could be somebody that you were highly influenced by, said something that made you feel like you had to be a certain way because you either aspired, you know what I mean? So it's like, so that's where the shadow work comes in. It's like, in my chart, my birth chart is very, shows more than say my hand would. Um, I could get in deep and really get in deep to like all these lines and stuff. And, it would be very telling. But as far as like when you are characterizing yourself, putting yourself in a box like Myers-Briggs does, there's only 16 personalities. There's many facets to that. So I don't believe that this is, 100%. But I think that, again, like I said, you will see these characteristics in an INFJ's hand. And I wanted to put this at the end of it just to show that there are going to be variations. So also another thing I do want to say about INFJs, anytime there is water in your personality, in your birth chart, I think that you will see many little crosses and lines. And that is kind of a water hand characteristic, because with a person that feels a lot, there's also a lot of stress. And that's what those lines are indicative of. If they're just a lot of little fine lines, a lot of little like crosses and stuff. And then again, INFJs are thought to be very psychic, and it is because they're very deep in their thinking. And I am speaking as an INFJ there. So I think really that's about all I wanted to cover in this video. The 12th house, I just wanted to share this with you. My 12th house is in Leo, and that's where you find your secrets. That's where you find your shadow. It's who you really are at your core. So there is another little thing that I want to add here, with a difference between real sky and Western, is that in Western, my ascendant is in Virgo. So, and then in real sky, it is in Leo. I think that, so esoteric astrology, from watching Farah talk about esoteric astrology, and then Carol, the fact that the ascendant is like what they focus on, it makes me wonder if, because I have a stellarium in Virgo, if the esoteric isn't more based upon, the Western astrology, which makes Virgo, which is what I am in, my sun is in real sky. So I'm thinking esoteric is possibly, this is just how my mind is thinking out loud with you. So, any comments, if you think that this might be the case, is that esoteric was kind of onto something. The fact that real sky points out where your sun really is or was at the time of your birth. If esoteric isn't kind of like making up for that. So instead of looking at Leo as my ascendant, and just focusing on that as my ascendant, I think that is, the esoteric is pointing out Virgo in my Western, because actually in real sky, it is Virgo. So did that make sense? I'm not sure if I made any sense with that. I'm just saying that, and I also have a stellarium in Virgo. So, in real sky. So, yeah, I just, I'm thinking out loud there. So let me know what you think about that, because I haven't really studied esoteric to know if I might be onto something there. So, but I know A lot of you have. So let me know what you think about that. And that's it. I know I took up a little bit more time than I originally intended with the little ad at the end there. So, yeah, I am an INFJ, but I think that the more I do this shadow work, I might end up being something else eventually. Maybe a king or probably a knight, because I'm working on becoming a little bit more extroverted. Let's just say it's getting easier. It's getting easier. I feel I'm more comfortable where, a year ago I was not, and I still sweat and I'm awkward. I need medicine for that. All right. Well, thank you again. And so the next one will be the ISTJ, which is associated with the Queen of Swords. So in Western, I'm a Libra. So, that's probably who I probably would have identified before starting down the whole path of shadow work and for myself, thinking, okay, now this is some real shadow work here. I think we all try to be our best. And then, so when we're not looking, we don't realize that we do certain things until we start shadow work. Then it's like, oh, okay, that's why I do that. But anyway, thank you, and I will see you in the next video. And I love you guys. I hope you have a wonderful day.